We spent the past couple days talking about quarterback Geno Smith. Now we'll turn our attention to a couple more key players that will have to play at a very high level for the Raiders to succeed in 2025. That plus more on Thursday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for July 10th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. Show grows each and every day because of your consistent support, the way that you check in, even in the off season. And of course, it shows and grows because of the job that my man Ari does behind the scenes on the YouTube page, doing a phenomenal job. So hats off to Raider Nation. Hats off to my man Ari. You can find him on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you at 707-654-4693. We got a lot of really good feedback throughout the course of the week, so we'll try to get caught up and get as many calls and texts in on the show. We'll do that in segment number 3 as we close things out. Segment number 2, we'll turn our attention to running back Ashton Genty. What is he going to do his rookie year? What does he need to do his rookie year? I'll tell you what some NFL executive coaches and scouts say, who they believe and I have identified as the top 10 running backs going into this season. Where will Ashton Genty be following this season? That'll all come up in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and it has to do with another key player, a key cog, a guy that's really got to step up in a major way for the Raiders to have a big season in 2025. We'll jump into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And before I get into the news and notes, I do want to give a big shout out and thoughts and prayers going out to Anna and Rob, really good friends of the show, been really good friends for a very long time. And I'll just say this, as I'm not really the guy that needs to put all their business in the street, but if prayer is something that you believe in, their family could use some these days. So, yeah, we've been really good friends since the early days of the Locked On Raiders podcast, since I've taken over. And so they're near and dear to my heart and obviously my family's heart as well. So we definitely want to make sure we show them that love. So, again, if prayer is the thing that you do, then they could definitely use your prayers these days. So shout out to Anna and Rob out there. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the news and notes. And, you know, it's a couple weeks out from the start of training camp. I've said it multiple times. It's ranking season. There's a lot of rankings going on with many different networks, many different outlets. ESPN obviously has theirs as well. So they're rolling out their ranking series right now when they're looking at a bunch of different position players, from quarterbacks to running backs to edge rushers, defensive tackles, right? And so anyone that really stands out to me that has to do with the Raiders, I want to try to bring it to the table. So we'll actually do that with a couple different positions today on the show. I talked about Ashton Genty. He's coming up in segment number 2. Here we'll talk about Max Crosby and edge rushers as they rolled out their top 10 edge rushers in 2025. And this is the thing Jeremy Fowler does, and he does a fantastic job covering the NFL for ESPN. He actually polled a bunch of executives, a bunch of coaches, a bunch of scouts, and they came up with the top 10. I'm not going to rattle through all top 10, but I will rattle out the top 6 and tell you where Raiders defensive end Max Crosby comes in. At number 6, Trey Hendrickson of the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, he's going through a contract situation right now with Cincinnati. He comes in at 6. He's actually led the league in sacks the last couple seasons. Nick Bosa of the 49ers, you already know the kind of impact that he brings to the table. And then, boom, there you go. At number 4, Mad Max Crosby of the Silver and Black. And, of course, in 2024, his season got cut short, only played 12 games, first time ever in his career that he missed some games. So he comes at number 4. Micah Parsons is sliding in at number 3 of the Cowboys. TJ Watt of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, he's got his contract situation going on right now at Pittsburgh. He's there at number 2. And once again, Myles Garrett of the Cleveland Browns, the $40 million a year guy, comes in at number 1. So you're probably wondering, okay, why did you bring this to the table just to give us this list of 6 guys? Well, because of the feedback that followed that list on NFL Live. Booker McFarland, got a lot of respect for him, played in the league for a long time, was a hell of a player in college at LSU as well. And of course, he, does a lot of analyst work there for ESPN. He was asked by Lauren Rutledge about the list if he agrees with who's at number 1, and if he does not agree with who's at number 1, who should be representing that number one spot. Here's Booger McFarland.
Yeah, I disagree with it. And let me preface by saying this. When you're choosing from the top 4 or 5 pass rushers in football, it's kind of like choosing how do you want your filet. Some people like theirs rare. Some people like it medium well. I need mine well done. Judge me if you want to. That's on you, not on me. As far as the pass rush is concerned, to me, it's got to be Max Crosby. I think when you look at the skill, you look at the effort, you look at the technique, you look at the moves, nobody does it better. Yes, TJ Watt looks differently. Yes, Myles Garrett is more of a power guy. Micah Parsons may have a little bit more athleticism, but when you combine everything together, for me, Max Crosby is the best pure pass rusher in football, and there's no way, no other way to eat a filet than well done.
So Booger points out Max Crosby right there, coming in at number one. He believes Max Crosby should be number one, and I'm okay with that. I love the fact that he talked about really the total package that Max Crosby brings to the table. And the one thing I can say about Max is that he continues to evolve his game, right? I mean, there was one point early in his career where he was just a guy that would get to the quarterback. Then all of a sudden he realized that stopping the run, he struggled at that. And so he had to, evolve his game and be able to do that. I'll say this, for Max Crosby to be number one, and we've talked about it here on the show multiple times, he needs to make those finishing plays. Those plays that Khalil Mack made when he was really doing big things for the Raiders, right? The play that you have to have at the end of the game when you need to come up with a big strip sack, when you need to come up with, a batted ball or even an interception, or, you just got to go out there and finish plays. That's what he really needs to do to take that next step. And I think if you ask Max Crosby, I think he would tell you that that's the next step in his maturation as far as the edge rusher in the league. He's able to stop the run. He's able to get to the quarterback. He's got many different ways of doing that. But now he has to be the finisher. And the funny thing about it is Khalil Mack would get sacks, as you know, Raider Nation. He'd get them in bunches, like 3, 4, 5 at a time, right? He'd get those, and he'd get those big impact plays, and then he'd go away for a while. Then it's like, hey, man, Khalil Mack hasn't made a play. So I think Max Crosby makes more, quarterback hurries and sacks more often than Khalil did, as far as, more consistently, like each game, making an impact play. But he hasn't just put it together where he's able to get those finishers. And that's going to be big time. That's what this Raiders team is going to need, especially with this defense this year, when we know that there's a few parts that you really believe in, but then there's a lot of youth as well. Max is going to have to lead the way. We're all hoping Christian Wilkins comes back and is able to play early in the season, if not start the season, because he can help out as well, right? He hasn't had the help from the interior. He hasn't had a consistent running buddy across from him. So it really has been the Max Crosby show. So he needs that defensive line. Tyree Wilson, he needs to show up as well in year 3. There's a lot of different reasons why, Max is a great player. A lot of it, he's doing it all on his own, though, as well. So if he can ever get some consistent help from his guys along that defensive line and then get some really good corner play as well, I mean, it's just sky's the limit for what Max can do. I love what Booger said, except for when he starts to talk about the well-done steak. Now, that's a problem. When he's talking about the well-done steak, that's a problem. And then he talked about a filet. Look, Booger McFarland's a big dude. He don't need no filet mignon. He needs a bone-in ribeye. And it can't be well done. It's got to be medium rare. He knows that. But outside of that, what he had to say about Max Crosby, I thought was spot on, and love the fact that he put him at the number one spot. But, the executives out there, the scouts out there, the coaches out there that were polled by Jeremy Fowler of ESPN had Myles Garrett at number 1, TJ Watt at 2, Micah Parsons at 3, Max Crosby at 4, Nick Bosa at 5, Trey Hendrickson at 6. As much as I love what Booger said, I don't have a problem with that either. That list of top 6 right there, I don't think that that's a problem either. I think that all those guys are big, impactful players for their respected organizations. But thought that was an interesting note there on Max Crosby from Booger McFarland on ESPN's NFL Live. Coming up in segment number 2, we'll shift our attention from the defense to the offense, and we'll talk all things Ashton Genty and, see where he may possibly land next year. Not this year. He's not going to be on a top 10 list this year, but where could he possibly end next year? What kind of rookie season do we expect from the young man out of Boise State? That comes up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is FanDuel. We know summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. Look, you can follow the action. You can make it more thrilling. FanDuel gets you in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. You can track your favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. You can play same-game parlays. You can watch a bet right into the ninth inning. FanDuel makes it feel like you're part of the action at all times. So right now, if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open up the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. We go from Max Crosby coming in number 4 on the top 10 list as far as NFL execs, coaches, and scouts go, according to ESPN during the ranking season as we're in right now. So they did that with the running backs as well, the top 10 running backs. And the thing is, with the top 10 running backs, they're not necessarily top 10 by yards, but to value to the team. So it's funny when you go through the list, it all depends on what these different execs, coaches, and everybody feels these guys bring to the table. So I'm going to hustle up, go through the top 10 real quick. Ashton Genty is not on here, but we will get to the Ashton Genty part of the conversation. So at number 1, Saquon Barkley. He ran for 2,005 yards in 2024. Derrick Henry came in second. Jahmyr Gibbs, number 3 of the Detroit Lions. Bijan Robinson, number 4 of the Falcons. Christian McCaffrey, who we all know didn't play very much because he was banged up and injured for the 49ers in 2024. He came in number 5. Former Raider Josh Jacobs, who plays for the Packers, came in at number 6. Jonathan Taylor of the Colts at 7. James Cook of the Bills at 8. Joe Mixon of the Texans at 9. And Alvin Kamara rounded out the top 10. Again, according to executives, coaches, and scouts, they all came together and put this list together. So again, like I said, it wasn't all just based off of yards. But if you look at Ashton Genty, you know he was drafted number 6 overall. I like to say he was drafted to be very Saquon Barkley-like, very Derrick Henry-like, very Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Josh Jacobs-like, right? He was drafted to be one of those guys, one of those big, impactful players. So that kind of list, just thinking about it, knowing that, hey, man, a rookie that has never taken a snap in the league should not be on the top 10 list. I know some would say, yeah, why not put him on there because he's going to be that good? Look, he's got to go out there and prove it. He's got to go out there and show what he can do. Now, I've seen some wide receiver lists that actually have wide receivers coming out of college this year that are already on the top 10 list. I think that's silly. If you haven't done anything in the league, I don't think you can be on one of those lists. But that's a whole nother side note conversation that I don't need to have right now. So it got me thinking about what should be realistic expectations for Ashton Genty year 1 under Pete Carroll. And we know what Pete Carroll was able to do at USC with Reggie Bush and Lendale White. We know what he was able to do in Seattle when he had Marshawn Lynch. So the blueprint is there. And we also know the offensive coordinator is Chip Kelly and what he could bring to the table. And he does not need a running quarterback to be successful. He needs a really good running game. That's going to be led by Ashton Genty. And I'm not saying that he's going to be the only guy to tote the rock for the Raiders in 2025. But, of course, he's going to do the majority of the heavy lifting. So it got the wheels turning. It got me thinking. I was talking about it on my radio show on Wednesday, Unnecessary Roughness, on Raider Nation Radio 920. Like, where do you think he can land following his rookie year? Like, when they do this top 10 list again, when they poll these executives, these scouts, and these coaches, where do you expect Ashton Genty to be? And I came up with, look, if he's not top 10, if he's not one of those top 10 running backs after his rookie year, something went terribly wrong. I mean, it's just straight up. Something went terribly wrong because he's expected to do the heavy lifting. Now, I can't anticipate injuries, right? We know those kind of things happen, but just going on the idea that he's going to play all 17 games, which again, you can't anticipate if he will or if he won't, but just going on that thought, knowing what he's supposed to bring to the table. If he's not a top 10 running back after his rookie year, in my opinion, what went wrong is either he got injured or the offensive line stunk, right? And we don't want either one of those things to happen. So I looked at it and thought, okay, 17 games, what kind of yardage am I looking at? At one point, remember 1,000 yards was like the mark that running backs had to have. You got to 1,000 yards, man, they had a really good season. It's not that anymore, right? It's not, especially with having an extra game, knowing the way that offenses are opened up now. You know, it's more spread open. It's not the 1,000 yards is the marker anymore. It used to be, but it isn't anymore. So I took into effect. I was like, all right, 17 games. Where do I think he should be as far as yardage goes? Where do I think he possibly could be? I don't want to get crazy and think that he's going to be a 2,000-yard rusher or, you know, do anything like he did in Boise State last year where he went for 2,600-plus yards. But I think 1,200 to 1,300 yards rushing, I think that's fair, right? And even I think they're going to throw the ball to him out of the backfield. He can easily go for 300 to 350 yards receiving as well. Like, he's going to do a lot of heavy lifting, in my opinion. So I have his floor at 1,200 yards. I have his ceiling at 1,300 yards on the ground. 1,200 yards, that would be an average of 70.5 yards per game, which is not a lot. I mean, it's good. It's not a lot, though, right? And 1,300 yards would have you at 76.4 yards per game, where a guy like Saquon Barkley last year, who, again, went over 2,000 yards, ran for 125 yards per game. That was his average. So I think 70 is reasonable. Now, the funny thing about that is the Raiders as a team last year in 2024 only averaged 79.8 yards per game, right? That was good for dead last. So the need for Ashton Genty is there, but also the offensive line is going to have to be critical. Right? The offensive line is going to have to come together. The offensive line is going to have to do their job to not only allow Geno Smith to have an opportunity to throw the ball, but for Ashton Genty to be the guy that we're expecting. Again, 1,200, 1,300 yards, I think is reasonable in his rookie year. 1,200 yards would have him 8th in 2024. It would have had him right ahead of Chuba Hubbard of the Panthers, who had 1,195 yards, and 1,300 yards would have had him 7th, right ahead of Kyron Williams of the Rams, who had 1,299 yards, and right behind Josh Jacobs, who had 1,329 yards for Green Bay. So you see where he can line up. I feel like that's a reasonable range. But when it's all said and done, I believe he should be a top 10 running back at the least after his rookie year. I think he has the ability to be that good. And again, this top 10 list that came out is not necessarily by yards, so I'm trying to kind of put it all into perspective at the same time. Now, I also want you to hear from Shantelle Chand. She's the host of the Raider Squad show. We've 4 shows in now. Mondays and Wednesday we do it. It's a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's great. 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, Monday and Wednesday we do it. It's myself, Lincoln Kennedy, and Shantelle. She's running the show as the host. She joined my radio show as well on Wednesday, and I got into the conversation about Ashton Genty, his rookie year, and what were her thoughts? Because, again, she always asked me and Lincoln the questions. I wanted to flip the script and ask her as well. Here's Shantelle talking about Ashton Genty.
I think Ashton Genty is probably going to be what we think he's going to be in terms of he's going to bring a little bit of excitement to the team. We're going to see him, obviously, in some really big plays, but you're only as good as your O-line. And that's what the Raiders, should be a little bit concerned about because there are still some questions on that O-line, but of course still lots of good young talent. And we kind of talked about it on the episode today about the depth that the Raiders may or may not have on this O-line. So for Ashton Genty, as good as he is, as good as a rookie as he is, he's also good in the pass game as well. And I think we'll be able to see that this season. But you're only as good as your O-line. Of course, you got JPJ, and Ashton Genty never had a center like that in college. So that's going to be very interesting to see as well. But of course, there's still some questions. Colton Miller, DJ Glaze, we talked about earlier on the show today. So you're only as good as your O-line. I think Ashton Genty is going to, have some exciting moments this season for the Raiders. But if this O-line can really get going, it could be a very special season for him.
So I thought we had Shantelle on the phone. I didn't know we had Lincoln Kennedy on the phone. What happened here?
I'm spending too much time talking to Link, man. He's having an effect on me.
No, hey, you know what? You're not wrong. He's not wrong. It all starts up front with that offensive line. How much confidence do you have in this coaching staff led by Pete Carroll? His son, Brennan, is the offensive line coach. But how much confidence do you have that they are going to be able to put the pieces together and get the right 5 guys for that offensive line to be able to gel? As Lincoln always talks about, it's about not only getting the right guys, but they're having to work really well together early.
Well, we kind of talked about it earlier today, and, Colton Miller, I feel like, once all that contract negotiation stuff is, off to the side, he's still showing up right now and being a team guy. JPJ, his second season, I feel like we're going to see him get a little bit better, and we talked about how good DJ Glaze was last season and coming into this year. Now, as for Pete Carroll, historically, as you know, the Seattle Seahawks never really had an O-line, even during the years of Legion of Boom. Russ never had that O-line. Mm-hmm. And so for some strange reason, Pete Carroll, midway through the season, would figure something out with this O-line, and they would continue to win games, but they got better as the season went along. So I'm expecting much of the same this year for the Raiders because we have the pieces. What 5 guys is it going to be? As an O-line, you're going to need depth, but I think Pete Carroll is going to be able to figure something out where the Raiders O-line is going to be a success in terms of just getting better week to week because we just have to see them out on the field.
So we start talking about Genty, and we end up back on the offensive line, and she's not wrong. Again, and that's part of the conversation that I had, right? The O-line is going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting if the Raiders plan on maximizing the talent that they have. And right now I feel comfortable with Colton Miller at the left tackle spot. I feel good of JPJ at the center spot. I think DJ Glaze is definitely going to hold down that right tackle spot. The guard spots are the ones that I'm very interested in. And it's funny, talking to Paul Gutierrez from ESPN, from the Raiders.com, used to be part of ESPN on Wednesday as well. He mentioned Alex Kappa, and he felt like, and of course, it's not even training camp yet, but he hinted at the fact that he felt like he had that right guard position already, kind of sewed up. And remember, he's the free agent that the Raiders picked up from the Bengals. He did not have a good year with Cincinnati last year, but he's very familiar with Tom Brady. He's very familiar with John Spytek with his time there in Tampa Bay, where he actually won a Super Bowl. So that is an interesting nugget. So now I'm looking at, okay, well, Jordan Meredith, he's a guy that's available for that left guard position. Dylan Parham, he's the guy that's available for that left guard position. There's obviously rookies that are out there, young guys that are out there that are available for that left guard position. Who's going to hold that down if Alex Kappa, in fact, does get that right guard position? And the other nugget to this is, what about Thayer Munford at the left guard spot? That's been something that's been talked about as well. Sounds like he has an opportunity to maybe hold that down. And, well, that would be one, a big, beefy offensive line. But two, Chip Kelly needs those offensive linemen to be able to move and get out there in space. So are they athletic enough to make it happen? I believe Colton Miller is. JPJ, you see that he, lost a little bit of weight. He put himself in a better position at that center spot. DJ Glaze, I feel like he's pretty athletic. We'll have to see what happens with Kappa. We'll have to see what happens with Munford. We'll have to see what happens with Parham. Right, this offensive line is going to definitely be something to pay attention to once training camp opens up, because they are going to be the key to everything. But Ashton Genty, if things go right with the offensive line, is going to be the key to the success of the Raiders offense. So I'd love to hear from you, 707-654-4693. Do you feel like Ashton Genty should be a top 10 running back following his rookie year? And if you want to take it a step further, what kind of yardage do you think that he should be looking to gain his rookie year? How much use, how much burn do you think he's going to get? How many times do you think Chip Kelly is going to call his number? Again, as far as I'm concerned, I feel like 1,200 yards is the floor, which would average about 70.5 yards per game, and 1,300 yards is the ceiling, which would put you at about 76.4 yards per game. I'll tell you this, the Raiders as a team need to definitely be over 100 yards per game on the ground. There's no doubt about it. I mean, they struggled. How many times last year, and I can go back and look, but how many times last year did they actually end up over 100 yards per game? Not very many times, right? It was only a couple of times that they actually went over the 100-yard, the century mark, and that's not good. And that's how you end up averaging only 79.8 yards per game, dead last across the National Football League. That can't happen. If they're anywhere near that in 2025, it's going to be a very long, it's going to be a very bad season for the Silver and Black. So, again, give me your thoughts. Ashton Genty, what do you think he does his rookie year, and is he a top 10 running back following his rookie year? I say yes, and I say if he's not a top 10 running back, something went wrong. What's on your mind? We hear from you next. We close the show out, segment number 3 of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts are off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Had some really good conversations and topics we've been talking about throughout the course of the week. And, of course, want to hear your thoughts on Ashton Genty as we talked about him in segment number 2. But right now, we'll get a text from Peter in Winnipeg. He says, hey, Q. Peter from Winnipeg, love the new show you guys started. Counting yesterday's topic on stories to watch, 2 big things I'll be watching for is the offensive line play and how the young guys on defense perform. I'm not overly concerned about the defense. Coach Graham seems to be able to make things work well if the team doesn't get decimated with injuries. One solution or idea I've thought about is if there's a trade out there to upgrade the offensive line. I hate to assume things, but one would imagine the Raiders will have at least 1 or 2 comp picks for next year. Maybe they could try to make a move for a starter. Anyway, hope all is well, my man. Go Raiders. That's Peter in Winnipeg. And yeah, man, thanks you for the compliments on the new show, the Raider Squad show. We do a fantastic job, or I think it's a fantastic job with that. It's only going to get better and better each and every Monday and Wednesday, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. The offensive line, I talked about that in great detail in segment number 2. There could be a move for an offensive lineman. I think that once training camp happens and the cuts happen, when it gets down to the 53-man roster, there'll probably be a guy or 2 out there available that the Raiders look at and are very familiar with and say, yep, let's go get that guy, right, to add depth. Lincoln always talks about that, adding depth on the offensive line. There's probably going to be some injuries here and there. You just know that's what happens in the NFL. As far as Coach Graham, he does do a good job, I think, with what he's working with. He finds ways to make guys, put them in really good positions. I'm interested, as Lincoln says all the time, interested to see what he does this year, especially with the young secondary. How does he put them in the best position to succeed? That'll be something to pay attention to for sure coming up in training camp. Thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. Let's get a call in from Raider Noah in the 801. He's calling to talk about Geno Smith, head coach Pete Carroll, and Chip Kelly, as well as a collective of others. Here he is, Raider Noah in the 801.
Raider Q in the 702. I don't even know if that's your area code. It's one of the ones down there in Vegas, but it's Raider Noah in the 801, man. How you doing? I just got finished wrapping up the Wednesday's episode, and we got to talk about Geno, and got to talk about Pete Carroll and how they're gonna mix up, and it got me wondering. There's gonna have to be some sort of love triangle involved with Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, and Chip Kelly, right? Like, Chip Kelly's obviously involved in there, but I wanted to see if I could ask you. I wanted to see if I could ask you about Chip Kelly. I wanted to see what's his game plan. Like, what kind of offense does he run? I mean, I feel kind of stupid for not knowing and and not looking it up myself. But I'm currently sitting here driving, and I wanted to hear it from my favorite Raiders podcast guy. So, Raider Q on the 702, man. I kind of like it. It's got a nice little jingle. Anyway, man, you have a good one. Raider Nation, hope you all are doing all right, man. Let's keep it together. Peace.
Noah, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And I mean, I live in the 702, but you know, I got a cell phone just like everybody else does, and I've had the same number forever, so I'm still a 559 guy, right? I went from the 559 to the 254 to the 702, but I still got the 559 area code. So, yeah, there you go. But, yeah, Raider Q. Raider Q in the 702 if you're Raider Noah in the 801. I guess that's what we're calling, right? That's okay. I'm not mad at that. But you bring up a good point about the love triangle as far as Coach Carroll, Geno Smith, and offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. As far as the offensive scheme goes, he likes to get guys in space. That's the biggest thing. He likes to have a really strong running game. Offensive linemen that can get on their horse to be able to open up running lanes, get to the outside. They got to be able to get on their blocks. And the thing that Lincoln Kennedy pointed out to me at mandatory minicamp, he saw both zone blocking and man blocking schemes on particular run plays, right? There were certain inside runs that they were manning up, and then outside runs they were zoning up, right? So that's going to be interesting to see, and Lincoln pointed it out. How do those offensive linemen adapt to that, especially because it's so hard to actually practice being an offensive lineman and doing what you do in the league because of the CBA, the way that it's set up. You just don't get that many reps, and it's all about physicality, and there's not that many times where they're actually physical in camp. So that's going to be, again, another element of the offensive line. How quickly can they all come together? So I think you bring up some really good points, and I think that has a good chance to be a good, little marriage or a love triangle, like you said. Head coach Pete Carroll, offensive coordinator Chip Kelly, and, of course, quarterback Geno Smith. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Kenny in Long Beach. Says, hey, Q. It's Kenny from Long Beach. Just finished listening to the recent Wednesday episode of the Raiders Squad Show. Awesome show, by the way. And one of the topics you guys talked about was the make-or-break season for Tyree Wilson. It has me wondering, has Tyree put in the extra work to get better this offseason? Has he shadowed Max with his workouts or relentless will and mindset to get better? Did he attend Max's annual sack summit? I agree that this is a make-or-break year for him. I have high hopes that he'll do good, but also he's been giving me Cleve Farrell vibes. What do you think? Go Raiders. That's Kenny in Long Beach. Thank you for the text. Appreciate you. And I know that there was a time that he was definitely shadowing Max. I do know that. That was even last year. I don't know if he was at the SAC Summit. I wasn't there. I was on vacation then, so I didn't get to be in attendance. But, he told us at mandatory minicamp, he knew how big this year was. He looked like he bulked up a little bit. He's got to get off the ball a little bit quicker. He's just got to make an impact, right? You see him have moments where he flashes. He's just inconsistent. He's got to go and be that consistent guy. I think this is that year where it's put up or shut up, right? He's got to show his worth. He's got to prove to now a third coaching staff and a third GM that he's worth the trouble. So, it might end up being one of those at the end of the day where, yeah, he played well at moments, but not well enough, right? It very well could be that. Or maybe in year 3, finally healthy, he breaks out. I think that this is a chance for him to prove himself, especially if a guy like Christian Wilkins isn't able to go early. Maybe he could find a spot. Maybe he's going to play on the inside. I don't know. But whatever it is, this training camp should be big for him, and the preseason should be big for him, and this year needs to be big for him for sure for him to prove himself. So, Kenny, thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Got a call from Stabler's Ghost. He's calling to talk about Geno Smith. Wants to bring up a really good point about his game that may be a little underrated. We have talked about it, but it still could be underrated. Here's Stabler's Ghost.
Q, The Stabler's Ghost from the Northeast United States, the 518. And you've been talking about Geno Smith quite a bit. I don't think you can really discount the deep ball accuracy that this guy has and the type of drafting that SpyTech did that will focus on that. I think it's nothing but good. I think that when you went through the win-loss, P.S., the squad show kicks butt. It's really great, honestly. You and Link should be together forever. Anyway, I think that the Geno Smith and the experienced coaching of Carroll with the defense, I think that the entire NFL is sleeping on us. And I think that we're not only going to go out and win more games than they think, but we're going to stomp people. We're going to put our proverbial boot in their throat. Like we should. Because we are the Raiders. Anyway, I love what you do, Q. Geno Smith has weapons. And I think Dante Thornton, hot take, could be in the running for Rookie of the Year. I think he has the potential to catch a whole bunch of touchdowns beyond 50 yards because our quarterback is legit. Finally, Raider Nation. Anyway, Q, I love what you do, and I agree with you on Geno Smith, and I think that the weapons that we have around him and the culture change in general is going to make this a playoff team. We're going to win 10 games. We might win 11. I think we're going to surprise a bunch of people. Oh, P.S. hot take. I think we're going to sweep the Chiefs. I think we're going to beat them both times. We're going to split with the Broncos. We're going to split with the Chargers. But we're going to sweep the Chiefs. Anyway, Q, I love what you do. Raider Nation. The only nation. Let's go. Raiders!
Stabler's Ghost, appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for the call. And yeah, the deep ball accuracy from Geno is incredibly underrated in my opinion, right? Pro Football Focus, you heard from Max Chadwick on Wednesday's show here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, 99.9 grade on the deep ball, right? That's good for first. That's some really good accuracy. And the thing about it is the Raiders haven't had that guy who can hit that deep ball consistently in quite a while. Right? DC was probably the last guy that actually had the arm strength to consistently hit that deep shot, right? Jimmy Garoppolo, nobody was worried about his arm. Aiden O'Connell has a strong arm, but he never has a chance to stand back there and actually deliver the ball because he's always under duress. Gardner Minshew, nobody was worried about his arm, right? And so this is an opportunity, especially with the weapons that have been brought in and Ashton Genty on top of that, because a strong run game, now all of a sudden the defense has to pick the poison. Right? Are you going to try to load the box and slow down Ashton Genty, or are you going to leave the box light so you don't get beat deep? Right? So that's when play action pass goes into effect. And again, that's when all of a sudden that deep ball accuracy, something that Geno Smith does really well, that's when that goes into effect. And now he's got multiple guys that he can target. He's got Trey Tucker, who's now going into year 3, and Dante Thornton Jr., who is the rookie out of Tennessee, a guy that they really targeted quite a bit during mandatory minicamp and OTAs and really made an effort to get him involved. So to me, I think that they like him a lot, but now they got multiple guys that could stretch the field, giving Geno Smith another opportunity. And, of course, with Ashton Genty, I think that that's really a game changer as well. Up next, got a text from Desert Raider from Arizona. Hey, Q, Desert Raider from Arizona here. Hope all is well. As always, love the show and the job that you and Ari do. Thank you. I have a statement and a question for you. The question first. I know that teams have former players involved with the team during training camps, sometimes during the season. I also know and love how much involvement there is of Raiders alumni, how much the organization takes care of the former players and their families. Makes me proud to be a Raider fan. My favorite player of all time is Bo Jackson. What an amazing talent and athlete he was. Does he ever do anything with the team? I know I've seen Marcus Allen involved a lot, but I never see Bo. What an amazing thing it would be to see Bo and Marcus cutting it up with Ashton Genty. Now the comment. I 100% absolutely support Keith from 305's position on the Geno Smith 707 Outburst video. I want a dog between those lines. Geno carries himself well and is articulate and professional every other time I've seen him. But I want someone on that field that's going to be trash talking, playmaking, unapologetic monster. I love the competitive spirit coming out. That's what this year is all about, right? Competition. Geno called no names, was not personally disrespectful, but was purely fired up about that competitive fire burned white hot, like the Al Davis torch. Here's to 2025, or as I've dubbed this year, the Raiders return to relevance. Go Raiders, Desert Raider out. Thank you so much for that text. I do appreciate you. You know, I never see Bo. I've never seen Bo Jackson at all. Fantastic talent. We all know that. Bo knows everything. He's incredible. I've seen him on some podcasts talking Raiders, but I've never seen him around the organization. Doesn't mean he's not around, just means I haven't seen him. But yeah, how cool would that be? Like I did an event a couple years ago where it was Marcus Allen and Tim Brown, and they were sitting there, and I was interviewing them, but they were really just interviewing each other. It was fantastic. I'd love to have a moment to sit down and be able to just listen to Marcus Allen and Bo Jackson chop it up back and forth, or some greats like that, some legends like that. But I never see him, so I don't know if he's around or if he plans on being around anytime soon. I do know that the 49er preseason game, that will be the alumni game at Allegiant Stadium. So, you know, if he's going to show up, you know, once a Raider, always a Raider, would love to see Bo Jackson there. As far as what you were talking about, you were talking about Key, 305 Key. That's what you were talking about when he said what about Geno Smith in that 7-on-7 outburst video. Yeah, that's why I never made a big deal about it. Again, I didn't hear him call anybody any names. I just heard him talking a little trash, but you know, it kind of got a little carried away. So, you know, I hate that I didn't have too much more to say on it, just because I don't want to assume what was going on. But, you know, if in the heat of competition, he's going to be that dog that you're talking about and 305 Key is talking about, I'm good with that too. Again, I don't want him to put a bad impression on kids. I don't want him to set himself up for failure because he is the starting quarterback of the Raiders. There's always cameras going, so you got to be careful with what you do, right? I mean, you're always a target out there, especially for people that don't have anything to lose. So you don't want him to get caught up in something stupid like that. But, I mean, if it was just, you know, competition, a little trash talking back and forth, which, again, it appeared to be, again, only in the 30-second video, then it seems like things are okay. But like I said, I don't know the full details of what happened. But thanks so much for that text. I do appreciate you. We'll close things out with a call from Raider Izzy. He's calling to talk about a couple of weapons for Geno Smith and Dante Thornton Jr. and also Trey Tucker. Here's Raider Izzy.
What up, Q? Raider Izzy. Haven't called in a while, man. Hope all is well with you and the fam. Wanted to kind of chime in talking about Dante Thornton. Love that pick. Something I wanted to talk about, too, is Trey Tucker. So I'm kind of an all-22 guy. I'm more of a visual guy. Not saying I'm against analytics or anything like that. Obviously, everything has its place. I get it. Something came out early on in the offseason, I think it was. I can't find it. I'll be honest, I didn't put a ton of effort into it, but about the yards of separation that Trey Tucker had, it was very bad. And I don't fully understand it. Because when I watch the all-22, and just because I like to see like the routes that are run for the players that don't get the ball and stuff like that, man, there were numerous times where he was wide open deep, and we just did not get him the ball, whether it be the quarterback didn't have time, whether it be, you know, O'Connell was forced out and he got rid of it, or, you know, Minshew just didn't have confidence in it. He had numerous times where he was open deep, and sometimes even the quarterback just didn't see it. So, like, I don't know, man. Like, I get that stat that I saw, but, like, the reason I'm bringing that up now is I don't want people to get into the whole Thornton-Tucker thing as it becomes like a one or the other type thing that Raider fans always do. And, man, I understand Thornton is probably going to be better than Tucker's, which is great, but I don't want it to become, you know, well, if Thornton succeeds, then Tucker's out of a job. No, like, these are two very electric players. Keep both of them. Like, no one's saying we're going to get rid of him now. I get it, but, like, it's going to get to that. As training camp comes and everyone's saying that, you know, Thornton versus Tucker, it's going to get to that. I know it is. It always does. So I don't want that. Like, I would love to keep both of them. I would love to, and they both have roles. Like, Tucker has more experience in the slot than Thornton does. And, like, he can be more of a gadget guy. Like, that's fine. We're not paying him much. So I would love to be able to utilize both of these guys. I'm super excited about that. I actually like some of these pieces in the offense too. So Very excited about this. But love the show as always, bro. Later.
Izzy is. Thanks so much for the call. Totally understand the call. Totally understand it. Tucker versus Thornton. That's what you don't want to hear, right? Not trying to have that approach. You want them to keep both guys, and there's a chance that they could hold on to both guys. The only thing I'll say about that is, you know how this game is. It's a numbers game. And when they get down to the 53-man roster, if it's either or, they're not going to pick Tucker because Dante Thornton Jr. is the one that they just drafted, right? They didn't have anything to do with drafting Tucker. All right, I don't know how Tucker fits in with what they want to do. They were getting him the ball in mandatory minicamp. They were getting him the ball in OTAs, but they were also targeting Thornton quite a bit. And he's got the size over Tucker. And Tucker's going into year 3 and hasn't really established himself as who he is as a wide receiver, right? Is he a great route runner? Is he a great deep ball threat? Is he a gadget guy like you mentioned? Can you do some bubble screens to him? What is his expertise? And it's not all his fault. Like, a lot of times when players don't pan out, it's because of the fit, right? And since he's been with the team, right, he had Josh McDaniels calling plays, then he had Luke Getsy calling plays, and then he had who else? Scott Turner calling plays, right? So he really hasn't had anyone consistently calling plays that was actually really good at what they do, right? So Chip Kelly has an opportunity to open him up. It would be great to see both those guys on the team because that'd be nice, two nice threats that we know can stretch the field. But if it comes down to the numbers game, it's going to be tough to keep them both. Right? If it comes down to either or, Thornton's going to get the nod over Trey Tucker. But Tucker's had a couple of years to prove who he is. 33 games he's played so far, had 66 catches, 870 yards, and 5 touchdowns, which is good for just over 13 yards per catch. So there's obviously a place for him in the league. Is he going to be able to hold on to his spot with the silver and black? I do think it's a real conversation, but I understand what you're saying. You want to keep as many weapons as possible. So thanks so much for that call. I do appreciate you. That's going to do it for today's show. Got a text from Phil in the 626. Got a call from Raider X, a text from STL Raider. We'll get all that tomorrow. ESPN did a really good feature on the Raiders, Pete Carroll, and even a little bit on Mike Vrabel, who's going to be the week 1 opponent for the silver and black, and how important it is to have those two guys in particular back on the sideline, and did a lot of breakdowns when it came to the silver and black. So I get that coming up on tomorrow's show as we close out the week really strong. We'll have more news and notes, of course, and we'll see what else rolls across the timeline that we put up. But hopefully you enjoyed the show. Hopefully you've been enjoying the Raiders Squad show. I've gotten a lot of great feedback from that. Shantelle Chand, I always get it. Why do I always mess up her name? I always get her name wrong. I don't know why that is, but Shantelle Chand, Raiders Squad show host, she does a really good job. Of course, Lincoln Kennedy does a really good job as well. So we'll be back on that show coming up on Monday at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. So until then, Raider Nation, we'll talk tomorrow, Raider Nation. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.